Today, Cruise Doris Visits is in the French town of Bordeaux. This is the classic picture postcard of Bordeaux. We'll show you how you take this picture, take you to the wine museum, and on a wine tour. Then show you the town. First, that wonderful classic picture. Here's how it's made. The mirror of water is a new feature built in the Place de la Bourse, which was built in the 18th century under Louis XV. The square is lined with historic buildings that look so much better when photographed with this mirror image. And it's created by water, a very thin layer of water in a shallow pool, which fills up daily between 10 in the morning and 10 at night, which allows you to get day and night pictures, the best pictures ever. You need to wait until it's completely filled up, and then the filling motion stops and the water starts to go flat. And you need to be in that far corner, because that's where the picture is when the water drops to just the level where the wind is no longer rippling it. You need to be quick before people start to walk through it. The buildings in Bordeaux are so classic and historic, and that's the small ones as well as the big ones. Sometimes it's hard to know when they're real or not real. That's real. This is all real. And these buildings are all real, but these are not. Bordeaux is being used for Paris in a period film, Paris in the 1830s. It's a Polish film called Chopin. Bordeaux also has its own triumphal arch. It's at the Quai Richelieu on the Garonne River at the foot of the Pont de Pierre, the stone bridge. It's a gateway into the medieval city. When you've found that, you've found the classic old market and also the very flamboyant Gothic Basilica of St. Michael. And the best view of this side of the Basilica is actually from a corner just over the road. And when you're standing here in the corner looking at the Basilica, you're actually right outside the best vegan restaurant in Bordeaux. The best dish is their vegan tacos. There are wonderful buildings everywhere, and the best way to get round and understand them is to take a walking tour. But let us just walk you towards the park. The park is quite special because it has a botanical garden inside, the garden public or the public gardens, and at the Place de Badineau is also where you'll find the Natural Science and History Museum. Opposite that is a play park for the kids, and it is the start of the waterways, the ponds and the bridges, and the botanical gardens are just further on. This is the Place of Victory. It's not the same as the Arc de Triomphe, it's a separate place, and it's also the start or at the bottom of a huge long street of shopping. There is the usual hop-on hop-off bus, which is a great way of orientating yourself around Bordeaux, especially if you don't want to get lost doing the walking. The tram is very usable. Further along the front at La Place de Quinconces, which is much more famous for the monument to the French Revolution, we found the Autumn Fun Fair, which looked much more spectacular at night, as does the monument. Another possible way to get around Bordeaux is actually to do the river taxi up and down the river. There is a map to show you the various stops. We're going to walk down the river all the way to the lifting bridge at the other end and visit the wine museum. The name of the bridge is Jacques Chaban Delmas, and this amazing engineering feat has a central lifting span of 117 meters. It's 45 meters wide and it weighs 2,500 tons. It was opened in 2013 when it was the tallest lifting bridge in Europe. And the building right next to it, which is also quite tall and very strange looking, is the Wine Museum. It's actually called the City of Wine, and it's an interactive museum which requires headphones, and there is a handheld piece which you can touch on the various exhibits so it automatically plays what you need to know. There are 18 modules in 6 different sections, so it's very big, but this is the bit that gets everybody going, crushing the grapes. You'll need to leave 2 to 3 hours to get round this museum, depending on how long you want to spend with the wine tasting. We'll get to that in a moment. But you could spend all day. My favourite bit was the sniffing. Fruit.
Fruit, yeah, fruit.
It's not overly cheap or overly expensive. In 2024 it was 22 euros, and that included 1 glass of wine at the end. You chose which one you wanted to taste. Most of it is films, and you could get a little frustrated that it isn't just one documentary, but we had a great time.
Miroir and Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a very fruity and have a very nice spice inside. You have a little bit of Cabernet Franc in addition. Yep, so we see a little bit more spiced. We can't name it champagne, so we call it cremant. Right. Same winemaking process, but not the same grapes.
Right.
Here you have Semillon and Sauvignon white. So this one is a brut, which means no sugar inside it at all. This one, right? Yeah, you have this one. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Oh, that is lovely.
Cremant de Bordeaux.
And that became the wine of the evening. Well, one of them, as the gaiety went on until the early hours, which is extremely easy in Bordeaux. Huge tourist town and an even bigger student town, so it's full of bars and restaurants, and it appears some very wealthy students. Ships in town. The Scenic Diamond seems to always be in Bordeaux, and the Ammer waterways, Amadolce, both seem to be new ships and very well appointed.
Let's go ride a bike.
If it rains too much, you can go by coach, and if it rains in the middle of it, they'll get the coach to come and get you. This is the Pomerol vineyard, the parcel of land known as Pomerol. We sampled 4 wines before lunch and then had a bottle of wine with lunch. It was now time to learn how the vines are pruned. The number of the barrel, the cupra, the maker are listed here, above the sign of the winemaker. But this barrel is toasted by putting a heater inside. One wine was a Grand Cru class, the other wine was not. Okay, let's get to Emilion, and this is where they used to do the laundry, just below the church. The town originally began to develop around the bottom, the lower end of the monastery, and then after the 12th century, it expanded to the higher level up above the monastery, and that was the 2-tier level of Saint-Emilion. See our previous champagne tour.
This is the Mum Champagne House. The most northern vineyards in France are where this wine comes from. They used to use these great big barrels for the wine, but now, since 1990, they use stainless steel. 25 kilometres of these tunnels were carved between 1850 and 1910 to rest this champagne. It rests for 3 years to get the flavour. In a moment, we'll switch the lights on and show you these old bottles of champagne, which date back from the 1890s. They keep them here. Eventually, they lose their bubbles, but they turn into delicious, very valuable bottles of wine. Discovery tour, you get to smell the 3 different flavours which are inside the champagne.
And this is where some of the champagne is drunk. The new Cunard ship.
Fun fact, There are over 2,700 books in this library, so nearly enough for every person on board because the capacity is 3,000. Just outside the Artisan Food Hall is the Panorama Pool Club. So this is the Royal Court Theatre and it has about 835 seats. Beautiful theatre. Just past the pub is the Bright Light Society, where you can take part in an immersive interactive show.
An evening of burlesque dance and immersive theatre.
Still on deck 2, this is the Queen's Room.
This is a very clever space. This ballroom has a balcony around the top, but as well as being a ballroom, as it's in the round, it can transform to having a club feel.
Moving on along deck 2, there's the chart room. Quite quiet in here during the day, so it's a great place to come and sit and read. This is the Britannia restaurant where we have our dinner, and look how beautiful it is.
The full 18-minute tour is on the Doris Visits channel. Please hit the subscribe button and share with your friends.